Going to give you an update now on the latest with Tropical Storm Beryl, focusing on what's changed from earlier briefings. So you can see the satellite loop there of Hurricane Beryl as it continues to drift toward the northwest, toward the Texas coast. Per hour tropical storm forecast to make landfall as an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane, which would be Category 1. We have some watches that have been upgraded to warnings to capture the areas of most at risk. There has also been a flood watch issued for portions of the area for late Sunday night through Tuesday, and I'll show you all these watches and warnings in a moment. Still looking at rainfall amounts, 5 to 10 inches, locally up to 15, and still concerned, of course, about rip currents, elevated tides, high seas, high winds, especially near the track of the hurricane, and possibly a few tornadoes and bands starting tomorrow afternoon. Here's a look at the 4 p.m. advisory showing the track. Really hasn't changed much over the last 24 hours. Still forecast to come in right around or maybe just a bit left of Matagorda Bay. And as I said, coming in as a hurricane, possibly making landfall around daybreak, give or take, Monday morning. Again, down there near Matagorda Bay. As a Cat 1 hurricane, good to plan for a Cat 2 in situations like this. Go one category higher. Also note on the map, the red line indicates where the watches have been upgraded to a hurricane warning. That would be from Baffin Bay to Sargent, now under a hurricane warning where we have the greatest threat of hurricane force winds. North of there, we have a tropical storm warning from Sargent to High Island. That's shown in blue. There is actually a small segment from Sargent to San Luis where we have both a hurricane watch and a tropical storm warning based on some uncertainty in how the storm evolves. Confidence in track continues to increase. We still could get slight changes, which could have big impacts on the forecast, so we're going to want to stay tuned to that. Here's a look at some of the warnings in effect now. On the left-hand side, these are the wind-related warnings. So you see in the brighter red, Jackson and Matagorda County, Matagorda Bay, all in a hurricane warning, as well as the adjacent coastal waters. In the darker shades of red, we have Wharton County, and also a bit further north, you can see how the warnings extend inland, a row of hurricane warnings near the coast, including Matagorda and Jackson County. And then tropical storm warnings with the darker shade of red. That includes Brazoria County, coastal Galveston, coastal Harris, Galveston Bay, even parts of Liberty and Chambers County and the adjacent coastal waters. Hurricane warning where we are most concerned about hurricane force winds. So like we've been saying this week, areas around Matagorda Bay are of greatest concern. On the right-hand side, you can see a storm surge warning in the darker purple, including coastal Brazoria, Matagorda, and Jackson counties, again, where the highest surges are expected. And then in a lighter shade of purple, storm surge watch continues now for areas around Galveston Bay and also on east to Beaumont, actually. That's been extended a bit further. There, still looking at some significant surge, but maybe not quite as high as where we have the storm surge warning. The time of arrival of tropical storm force winds is seen here. Looking now like early Sunday night. And that's changed a little bit, as we've briefed this as far as early in the night, later in the night. It has sped up a bit in timing. So Looking at the tropical storm force winds likely coming in tomorrow evening to the coastal areas. Notice the higher probabilities down near Matagorda Bay, as we've been talking about all week. But look at the Galveston Bay area. Those probabilities have come up. The reason for that is the Hurricane Center has expanded the wind field on the northeast quadrant. So that's why these probabilities are a bit higher further east, and why we had to extend the tropical storm force warnings all the way to High Island. Here's a look at the rainfall forecast. Some subtle changes here based on maybe a slightly faster movement. Still looking at 5 to 10 inches in that band of orange and one shade below. You can see the scale on the right-hand side, sort of a 6 to 12 swath right there through Matagorda Bay, including Jackson and Matagorda counties. And that extends fairly well inland. So you can see there will be likely some inland impacts from this, potential flooding from rainfall well away from the coast. Notice also, even in the Houston-Galveston area, we're looking at 4 to 6 inches of rain overall. And so there will be that flood potential, both flash flooding and also river flooding. This chart on the left-hand side shows the greatest risk of flash flooding from Beryl. And this is from the Weather Prediction Center. So you see that red area, a moderate risk. That's a pretty high rating as far as these things go. And you can see that includes, once again, our western counties. You can probably see that a little bit better with the graphic on the right, with all the counties in darker green in a flood watch based on rain primarily Sunday night through Tuesday. Interestingly, you see a lighter shade of green there. That was from a flood advisory from rain we had today. Many areas had a pretty good amount of rain unrelated to Beryl today. So you can see the flood watch area, though, defines the greatest flash flood risk. Storm surge, I showed you the storm surge watch and warning earlier. This is just a different look at that. The darker purple and then the more pink being the watch, the darker being the warning. So again, that warning area is where we're most concerned about storm surge, coastal flooding. Surge values have been adjusted. They have been raised by the storm surge unit at the Hurricane Center, looking at 4 to 6 feet of water above ground level in the areas around Matagorda Bay, between Mesquite Bay and Sargent, 4 to 6 feet. So that's pretty significant. 3 to 5 feet between Sargent and San Luis Pass, and then 2 to 4 feet around Galveston Bay and between San Luis Pass and Sabine Pass. Now, this is not reference to mean lower low water. This is reference to basically the vegetation line, or the mean higher high water technically. So this is above normally dry ground at the beaches. If you were to translate this to mean lower low water, well, we'll take a look at that in a moment. Now, I showed this morning some HURRAVAC graphics showing potential storm surge flooding with Beryl. And this is a really useful way to show where the flooding will occur on a map and how deep it could be, yellow being greater than 3 feet, blue being greater than 1 foot. Most of the areas shaded here are tidal, marshy areas. Not a whole lot of structures there, but there are exceptions, like down there on Matagorda Island, places like the west end of Galveston on the bay side, places that it's not unusual to get high water. And again, the most concern is going to be down there near Matagorda Bay, where the most of the water will likely be pushed up into the bay. This happens to be the hurricanes.gov representation of this field. You can go to that website and zoom in. But again, I like HURRAVAC better. So if you don't have that, be sure to log in to get an account. Now, talking about the timing of the surge, this surge model, not really designed for tropical systems, but it still gives you a good idea of the timing. Galveston Bay entrance there, you can see higher levels starting Sunday and then the peaking early Monday. Notice that high end of that range there, up around 5 feet. If you remember this morning, it was a bit smaller than that, maybe just a bit higher than 4. And that's in part due to a larger storm being portrayed in the model. So again, 5 foot, that's close to levels we had with Alberto for Galveston Bay in particular. Again, similar timing down in Sargent. I wouldn't focus on the values for that model there, for Sargent in particular. They will likely be a good bit higher. I would lean more heavily on the numbers coming from the Hurricane Center as you get closer to the track of the hurricane. And then tornadoes possible in spiral bands Sunday and Monday. On the left, you see the risk area for Sunday. On the right for Monday, the yellow being a level 2 and the darker green being a level 1. So again, as those bands come on shore, even tomorrow afternoon and night, we can get these quick spin-ups in those bands, quick brief tornadoes. So we'll have to be on the lookout for that. And that threat continues Monday as well, but shifts a little bit to the east as the storm tracks inland. So just key takeaways, we've been talking about this for a while now. The track does seem to be lining up for a landfall of a hurricane, likely right there around Matagorda Bay, maybe just left, but pretty close to that area. The confidence is increasing. We still have to monitor. We have another 36 hours for that thing to track across the Gulf. So it could intensify, and it's forecast to intensify to a hurricane. We could see some changes, so we got to stay on top of it. Tropical storm now, forecast to strengthen to a Cat 1. Best practice to plan for 1 category higher, perhaps a Cat 2. We have put out a flood watch trying to define the areas of most concern for flash flooding due to rainfall, mainly Sunday night through Tuesday. And as I've shown, some watches have been upgraded to warnings related to wind and storm surge flooding, again, where the warned areas are the greatest concern. Hardest hit areas for our forecast areas still appear to be, again, areas around Matagorda Bay, Jackson and Matagorda counties, and then slightly less as you go further east, but still much concern for Brazoria County, especially the low-lying areas. Hurricane force winds focusing there down around Matagorda Bay, perhaps up to Sargent, and then more tropical storm force wind threat as you go further up the coast. We're going to have to watch the track and the intensity. Again, slight shifts one way or another will cause this forecast to change. And so if it does change, we'll update you to that. And then isolated tornadoes possible starting Sunday afternoon. So again, confidence is increasing, but there still is time for the storm to either change track or intensify. So it still bears watching until it makes landfall. We will do another webinar tomorrow at 11 a.m. We will send out an updated briefing packet at 11 p.m. tonight. So look for those in your email, and also for updates on social media.